Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a foundational piece of SAP materials management that, honestly, gets overlooked way too often, but is absolutely the key to optimizing your procurement processes. We're talking about mastering the SAP purchasing group. If you're a focused learner trying to cut through the noise and figure out exactly how to streamline your SAP workflows, well, you're in the right spot. We're going to break this all down step by step so you walk away with real, actionable clarity. So let me kick things off by asking you a really fundamental question. It's one that every single procurement professional needs to ask. Who is actually doing the buying in your system? I know, it sounds like such a simple question, right? But the reality is that procurement chaos and those incredibly vague reports we all hate, they often stem directly from not having a crystal clear answer to this exact question. Because when management doesn't know who is responsible for specific purchases, literally everything from vendor negotiation to internal approvals just becomes this frustrating bottleneck. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. First, we'll define the SAP procurement key. Second, we'll tackle group versus organization. Third, configuration and best practices. And finally, why it matters. Let's jump right into Section 1, the SAP procurement key, defining the core. So what is a purchasing group exactly? Well, it's a 3-character key within SAP MM that identifies the specific person or the team responsible for procurement. But notice the second part of that definition. It's completely independent of a plant or company code. And that right there is what makes it such an agile organizational solution. It gives you this tremendous flexibility across multiple sites and really diverse organizations. You know, it's actually kind of amazing that a simple 3-character key can hold this much weight. But seriously, do not underestimate it. Those 3 little characters are what drive the critical workflows and approvals for absolutely every purchase requisition, every request for quotation, and literally every single purchase order in your system. It's basically the invisible engine that powers your daily procurement documents. Operationally, those 3 characters play a massive role in efficiency. They streamline daily tasks, like seamlessly issuing POs and handling supplier selection. Plus, they enable really vital category specialization. That means your teams can focus entirely on specific areas, like raw materials or packaging, which perfectly aligns your daily procurement with much larger organizational goals. And finally, having these well-defined groups means management can accurately track spend directly by category and by buyer responsibility. It's a real game changer. Moving on to Section 2, Group versus Organization, the big showdown. All right, here is the golden rule to clear up the absolute most common SAP confusion out there. The purchasing group represents the team. It essentially personifies the who that is buying. This is completely separate from the purchasing organization, which represents the strict legal entity or business unit, the where buying happens. Look, if you take away just one concept from this explainer today, definitely make it this who versus where dynamic. The group is the actual person or team doing the daily grind, and the organization is the legal framework they're operating within. Let's break this down even further, side by side. The purchasing group, again, represents the team. It is completely independent of a plant. Its primary focus is on who buys, and it's heavily utilized in your daily documents and reporting. Now, contrast that with a purchasing organization. That represents the legal unit. It is strictly linked to a company code or plant. It focuses on where the buying happens, and crucially, it's used for high-level legal contracts and broader vendor management. Honestly, just understanding this split solves like 90% of SAP setup confusion. Okay, let's get into Section 3, Configuration and Best Practices, taking this from theory to action. For all the SAP admins and analysts tuning in, here is your direct, actionable takeaway. Transaction OMI 4. This is the exact T-code you're going to use to define these purchasing groups in the SAP system. When you're finally ready to start building or auditing your setup, this is exactly where you need to go. Now, when you're actually inside OMI 4, your codes absolutely must be clear and unique. Take, for example, using ARM1 for raw materials or PKG for packaging. By using a standard logical naming convention like this, you ensure strong category alignment for your teams. And, most importantly, you completely avoid duplication and confusion when this gets put into practice. But I gotta give you a serious warning here. Poorly designed codes lead to vague reporting and major inefficiencies. If you just go in and create generic codes like Buyer 1 or Group A without any real strategy, you're just setting yourself up for real-world pain points. You literally won't know exactly what they're buying, your reporting is going to be pretty much useless, and your workflows will just stall out. So this setup absolutely requires careful thought and planning. So the crucial point here is following these best practices highlighted by Rasta Infotech's SAP procurement expertise. Step 1, define clear codes to ensure you have that category alignment. Step 2, assign responsibility. You need to map these groups directly to buyers for strict accountability. Step 3, leverage analytics. Use these exact purchasing groups for spend analysis and tracking vendor performance. And finally, Step 4, integrate with workflows. Just ensure your approval strategies perfectly align with the actual responsibilities of the groups you've just created. Which brings us to our final section, Section 4. Why it matters, the Rasta Infotech ROI. When you structure this effectively, these groups drive immense strategic benefits. This technical setup directly enhances procurement transparency across your entire organization. It empowers you to drastically improve vendor negotiations simply because you finally have a clear picture of buying habits. And crucially, it lets you deliver brilliant data-driven insights straight to management. By accurately tracking spend and vendor performance, as Rasta Infotech notes, this simple setup transforms everyday data into high-level business intelligence. Which brings us to our final, somewhat provocative thought for you today. Is your SAP setup truly optimized to reveal exactly who is driving your procurement success? If your reporting feels a bit vague, or if your groups aren't clearly mapped to categories and accountabilities, well, it might just be time to fire up Transaction OME4 and rethink your setup. Mastering the purchasing group really is the foundational step to robust materials management. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep optimizing, and I'll catch you in the next one.